We're gonna take ourselves to the Reader Lab. We're gonna learn till we can't no more. Mr. K, teach me something. Good afternoon, class. It's our last afternoon read aloud. Our book is coming to an end. Charlotte has died. Charlotte. That was so sad. Templeton the rat is back at the barn with Wilbur. And what does Wilbur have? Charlotte's eggs. And fall passed. The seasons are passing. And when are the babies usually born? In springtime. That's all the new life comes. So winter, Wilbur saw his first snow. I bop around. I move my hands. Thank you all for watching. I hope you're having a great Friday. I'm going to read the rest of the final chapter, chapter 22, where we left off. So the winter ended at last. That's where we ended. I heard the frogs today, said the old sheep one evening. Listen, you can hear them now. Wilbur stood still and cocked his ears. From the pond, in shrill chorus, came the voices of hundreds of little frogs. Springtime, said the old sheep thoughtfully. Another spring. As he walked away, Wilbur saw a new lamb following her. It was only a few hours old. Oh, so our old sheep has a new baby. The snows melted and ran away. The streams and ditches bubbled and chattered with rushing water. A sparrow with a streaky breast arrived and sang. The light strengthened. The mornings came sooner. Almost every morning there was another new lamb in the sheepfold. The goose was sitting on 9 eggs. The sky seemed wider and warm wind blew. The last remaining strands of Charlotte's old web floated away and vanished. One fine sunny morning after breakfast, Wilbur stood watching his precious sack. He wasn't thinking of anything much. As he stood there, he noticed something move. He stepped closer and stared. A tiny spider crawled from the sack. It was no bigger than a grain of sand, no bigger than a head of a pin. Its body was gray with a black stripe underneath. Its legs were gray and tan. It looked just like Charlotte. Wilbur trembled all over when he saw it. The little spider waved at him. Then Wilbur looked more closely. 2 more little spiders crawled out and waved. They climbed round and round the sack, exploring their new world. Then 3 more little spiders, then 8, then 10. Charlotte's children were here at last. Wilbur's heart pounded. He began to squeal. Oh, he's so excited. Then he raced in circles, kicking manure in the air. Then he turned a backflip. Then he planted his front feet and came to a stop in front of Charlotte's children. Hello there, he said. The first spider said hello, but its voice was so small Wilbur couldn't hear it. I'm an old friend of your mother's, said Wilbur. I'm glad to see you. Are you all right? Is everything all right? The little spiders waved their forelegs at him. Wilbur could see by the way they acted they were glad to see him. Yay, Charlotte's babies are born! They look just like Charlotte. Ew, there's lots of spiders everywhere. It grosses me out a little bit. Is there anything I can get you? Is there anything you need? The young spiders just waved. For several days and several nights, they crawled here and there, up and down, around and about, waving at Wilbur, trailing tiny drag lines behind them, and exploring their home. There were dozens and dozens of them. Wilbur couldn't count them, but he knew that he had a great many new friends. They grew quite rapidly. Soon each was as big as a BB shot. They made tiny webs near the sack. Then came a quiet morning when Mr. Zuckerman opened a door on the north side. A warm draft of rising air blew softly through the barn cellar. The air smelled of the damp earth, of the spruce woods, of the sweet springtime. The baby spiders felt the warm updraft. One spider climbed to the top of the fence. Then it did something that came as a great surprise to Wilbur. The spider stood on its head, pointed its spinnerets in the air, and let loose a cloud of fine silk. The silk formed a balloon. As Wilbur watched, the spider let go of the fence and rose into the air. Goodbye, it said as it sailed through the doorway. Wait a minute, screamed Wilbur. Where do you think you're going? But the spider was already out of sight. Then another baby spider crawled to the top of the fence, stood on its head, made a balloon, and sailed away. Then another spider, then another. The air was soon filled with tiny balloons, each balloon carrying a spider. Wilbur was frantic. Charlotte's babies were disappearing at a great rate. Come back, children, he cried. Goodbye, goodbye, they called. Goodbye, goodbye. At last, one little spider took time enough to stop and talk to Wilbur before making its balloon. We're going to leave here on the warm-up draft. This is our moment for setting forth. We are aeronauts, and we are going out into the world to make webs for ourselves. But where? Asked Wilbur. Wherever the wind takes us. High, low, near, far, east, west, north, south. We take the breeze. We go as we please. Are you all going? Asked Wilbur. You can't all go. I would be left alone with no friends. Your mother wouldn't want that to happen, I'm sure. The air was now so full of balloonists that the barn cellar looked almost as though a mist had gathered. Balloons by the dozens were rising, circling, and drifting away through the door, sailing off on the gentle wind. Cries of goodbye, goodbye, goodbye came weakly to Wilbur's ears. He couldn't bear to watch any more. In sorrow, he sank to the ground and closed his eyes. This seemed like the end of the world to be deserted by Charlotte's children. Wilbur cried himself to sleep. The poor little Wilbur. Here's a picture of those spiders. They're all flying in the air saying, goodbye, Wilbur. So why is Wilbur so sad? Because all the spiders are going away, all of Charlotte's babies. Well, you don't want 515 spiders or 514, whatever it was. So he's saying, where are you going? Come back. And now he's sad and he's crying. When he woke, it was late afternoon. He looked at the egg sack. It was empty. He looked into the air. The balloonists were gone. Then he walked drearily to the doorway where Charlotte's web used to be. He was standing there thinking of her when he heard a small voice. Salutations, it said. I'm up here. So am I, said another tiny voice. So am I, said a third voice. 3 of us are staying. We like this place. We like you. Wilbur looked up. At the top of the doorway, 3 small webs were being constructed. On each web, working busily, was one of Charlotte's daughters. Can I take this to mean, asked Wilbur, that you have definitely decided to live here in the barn cellar, that I am going to have 3 friends? You can indeed, said the spiders. What are your names, please? Asked Wilbur, trembling with joy. So now Wilbur's happy. Why does he feel joy? 3 babies decided to stay, and they said, salutations. Remember, that was the first thing Charlotte said to Wilbur. When he was sad and he moved to Zuckerman's farm, Charlotte said, salutations. And the babies said the same thing. I'll tell you my name, replied the first little spider, if you tell me why you're trembling. I'm trembling with joy, said Wilbur. Then my name is Joy, said the first spider. What was my mother's middle initial? Asked the second spider. A, said Wilbur. Then my name is Ariana, said the spider. How about me? Asked the third spider. Will you just pick out a nice, sensible name for me? Something not too long, not too fancy, and not too dumb. Wilbur thought hard. Nellie, he suggested. Fine, I like that very much, said the third spider. You may call me Nellie. She daintily fastened her orb line to the next spoke of the web. Wilbur's heart brimmed with happiness. He felt that he should make a short speech on this very, very important occasion. Joy! Ariana, Nellie, he began. Welcome to the barn cellar. You have chosen a hollow doorway from which to string your webs. I think it is only fair to tell you that I was devoted to your mother. I owe her my very life to her. She was brilliant, beautiful, and loyal to the end. I shall always treasure her memory. To you, her daughters, I pledge my friendship forever and ever. I pledge mine, said Joy. I do too, said Ariana. And so do I, said Nellie, who had just managed to catch a small gnat. It was a happy day for Wilbur, and many more happy, tranquil days followed. As time went on, and the months and years came and went, he was never without friends. Fern did not come regularly to the barn anymore. She was growing up. We saw that. And was careful to avoid childish things, like sitting on a milk stool near a pig pen. But Charlotte's children and the grandchildren and great-grandchildren, year after year, lived in the doorway. Each spring, there were new little spiders hatching out of the place. Most of them sailed away on their balloons, but always 2 or 3 stayed and set up housekeeping in the doorway. Mr. Zuckerman took fine care of Wilbur in all the rest of his days, and the pig was often visited by friends and admirers, for nobody ever forgot the year of this triumphant miracle of the web. Life in the barn was very good night and day, winter and summer, spring and fall. Dull days and bright days. It was the best place to be, thought Wilbur. This warm, delicious cellar with this geese in the changing seasons, in the heat of the sun, the passage of the swallows, the nearness of the rats, the sameness of the sheep, the love of the spiders, the smell of the manure, and the glory of everything. Wilbur never forgot Charlotte. Although he loved her children and grandchildren dearly, none of the new spiders ever quite took her place in his heart. She was in a class by herself. It is not often that someone comes along who is a true friend and a good writer. Charlotte was both. And that's the end of our book. What a way to end it. So life goes on, but Wilbur never forgets Charlotte. So I love that ending. It gives me a little goosebumps almost. It was such a great book. Thank you all for watching these afternoon read-alouds. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful summer. Of course, I'll talk to you before then, but we're coming to the end of school. I miss all of you so much. Thank you all for watching. Take care.